didn't believe anything that I said. When they came, you were not prepared. Then it all fell right on your head. And now you're lying in your bed. You've got yourself in a rabbit hole. You're trapped 'cause you did not let go. You took that bait and...
Hello, everybody. It's Carrie Walker and
Tiffany Williams.
And we're here today with a friend of ours that has almost been with us since the beginning of the ride. Almost, yeah?
Yep.
So David McCready is a buddy that I'm sure you guys have all seen before. If not, go back and check some of his shows. He's been on. This is his 5th time on with us. And I don't know. Hi, David.
David McCready from the UK.
From London.
Hello, Tiffany and Kerry. It's wonderful to be with you again today. You're best buddies in this. It's marvelous to link up and see your bright auras.
Oh, I love that. I love that. It is. Oh, there's a lot behind that. But first, I want to start with how we found you. I mean, I know we say this probably every single show, but it is. Tiffany and I were in England, and we decided. I don't think we went together. I think we went one at a time.
You got there before me, the bookstore.
Yeah, and it's this 2-story bookstore. What is it called, David?
Watson's?
Watson's, yes.
It's a big metaphysical bookshop.
And they moved to their new location in like 1912, 1920, and it's the largest metaphysical bookstore in the world, and it is huge. And by that point, I was kind of done with the books, and I told the guides, I said, okay, if there's anything I need to see, let it pop out. Basically, your book fell on the floor. And it's like, okay, well, that's the book we're getting. And I lugged this book around with me throughout the rest of our trip, and I just could not put it down. It's like, we need to reach this guy. And so...
This is part 1 and 2 of The Great Simulator. You are not here.
And then we have Real Alien Worlds.
Yeah, the second book, book number 2. Well, this is part 1 and 2 of The Great Simulator. So the second word was Real Alien Worlds, a brief encyclopedia. And so David's earlier shows with us, we talked quite a bit at length of how you teach astral travel and then the other entities and species of alien that you can encounter while you are astral traveling, and you make it all very simple and doable and practical. So
yes, and now we're talking about number 3, part 3, and we have been lucky enough to get kind of a sneak peek of this, and so it's like, David, you want to come play? So that's sort of our intro. Welcome, David.
Yeah, in part 3, what we're focusing on is how to make all of your astral skills easier. Because if you know what you're doing, it's going to be a lot easier to get you out and about on the astral. So we've given you a lot of information in the book, but really it comes down to 3 very simple things that I'd like to talk about during your show as we go along. Number 1 is how you're breathing. Number 2 is, are you energetically aware of the energies flowing through your body? And number 3 is, are you letting the various spirit beings and guiding spirits actually help you out and do a lot of the work for you? Because in many respects, they can act as a kind of autopilot for you. So as we talk today, we'd like to come back to these subjects a few times and just reinforce that 1, 2, 3 of breathing, energetically aware, have you got your spirit guides working with you? The context of why we're doing this today is in the Great Simulator book is pointing out that you're in a sort of a computer game of sorts where you're playing a role. It's like you're being your own movie star, but it's not clear where all the lines in your script are coming from. It's not clear what's driving the action. And if you can develop your astral skills and learn how to get out there, you can see more of how you're actually in control of what's going on and convert your life from being like a subconscious creation process into more of a conscious playground. So over to you, girls. What would you like to chat about today?
Well, I love everything you just said.
So I think that we have focused mostly on the other shows, on the astral travel and who you meet when you're out there. But I think the part that really resonates with me right now that I'm really picking up on, and I hope I did the last 3 or 4 years, or the last 3 years, is the fact that, yes, this is a game. And that's what you keep saying is that once you realize that none of this is real, then it gets really good. Then you can wake up and form your world. But I would love to go into that more, because I do have questions about that, because I can get a glimpse. It's like I kind of wake up, but it's hard to sustain that. It's hard to stay in that place of connection. It's like I've kind of pulled a plug. And you discuss that. You discuss these lower entities that are sort of in charge of the whole holographic world. Is that right? Did I read that right?
Yeah, so there are a lot of different entities making up our holographic world, and we really classify them into two groups. There are the lower spirits who are driving the hologram you experience. So they help with not only what you're seeing, but so much of what you're thinking and most of the emotions that you're experiencing. And then there's a second group of entities. We call them like the guiding spirits or the higher beings, higher spirits. And their job is to snap you out of the hologram. But I'd like to add something. From their perspective, they don't see it as snapping you out of the hologram. They see it as more a case of they join what you think you are in the hologram. It's like they come into you, they become you, and suddenly you've got a whole load of higher ability at your disposal. So when you're describing how during the day you get into that zone and then suddenly it would die, that's really describing how these higher beings are coming in and they get a chance to be the amazing Kerry girl. They can play around at being Kerry, and then suddenly they leave and Kerry says, what happened? Where did it all go?
Right.
Does that make some sense?
Well, it does. And is that your a higher self or your team that wants to experience through you?
Well, the higher self needs to act through the team that are looking after you. It needs to use some of those team members as an interface, and you're experiencing that interface happening, because when you really connect to the higher version of you, it's beautiful, it's huge, it's lovely and light, and doesn't have a lot of personality or much to say. So at that point, you start needing a little bit more detail, and that's where the team help add it for you.
So why would what vibration or what constitutes the higher self embodying you more, and then what makes it leave? Like, what is this? Because I call it ping-ponging. When I feel like I'm up and then I'm back down, I remember the wonder and the amazement, and then I'm stuck in the detail of the 3D world and the emotional intensity of it. So I call that ping-ponging, but feels like that's what you're saying. I'm in touch with it and then I'm not. What is that?
Yeah.
The roller coaster ride.
Well, you're describing it beautifully well. Well, that's the reality for most people. And for that higher part of you to get a good link to its physical body that it's created down below is quite tricky. It can often do it in bursts. Those bursts will work for longer and be more stable if the physical body is paying attention to those three things.
I'm breathing right now.
Before.
Very low.
That breathing. Well, that's good, because you're breathing in the slightly tense way, and every time I'm on the show, I catch the two of you breathing in the tense way, and then you both remember to breathe in the more relaxed way.
David can see our energy,
And
so he's always like, girls, how are you breathing?
You're not
Up here.
breathing.
Yeah. Okay. Nope.
So if we're taking breathing a little bit deeper, and when you're breathing deeper, just remember you can breathe with that natural smile, because it's helping that higher part of you make a link. And as you breathe with that smile, you start to feel your whole energy system begin to work more.
Why?
And as you feel your energy system begin to power up, that's because it is powering up. It is coming to life.
What is it about the breathing that makes us link? Is it the oxygen?
It's really to say the air is a living energy. And the living energy of air is what you're breathing in, much more than the oxygen itself.
Okay.
one of the things that we found in the research for the next book was that all of us, in a strange way, are generated by nature around us. So on our planet Earth, it's covered with beautiful landscapes, lovely trees and flowering plants and beautiful things like that. And all of this nature spirit wants to look at the heavens. It wants to see its creator. And to help it do that, it has helped create, shall we say, fairy-like creatures, which are really us. See, nature sees us as these sort of high vibrations fairy beings who walk amongst Earth, and nature nourishes us that way. And when you're breathing nicely, you're connecting into that nature energy, and that nature energy is helping pull the light through you. So, for example, a tree can get to see what the heavens look like, but borrowing the human channel. So when you're breathing more, it's helping connect into that nature energy, and it's giving you a massively improved flow and groundingness to this earth. So it's improving the connection down, it's improving the connection up. I hope that makes some sense.
Oh, it does. It
as I
does.
explain it that way.
Well, and I want to ask Tiff, because Tiffany has recently moved and she has a nature path around her. Do you feel a lot more connected because you're
Yeah.
in it a lot more?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
That's so cool.
Well, that's why everybody says when you feel ungrounded, go walk in nature.
Ground.
You're doing just that, reminding yourself of the nature, the plants, the oxygen in the air, the extra oxygen.
Well, okay, so David, I have to ask you something. You get this and you don't even question. Like, I get bits and pieces. I'm like, did I make that up? I mean, I constantly, and I think most of us do, constantly question. And you have outlined it in such incredible detail. And how do you trust what you get?
Well, it's a case of a lot of practice and hooking up with beings who understand it much better than I do. Because I describe it this way. Maybe about 35 years ago, I became interested in this whole subject of sort of spiritual things, and I discovered what astral projection was somewhere, maybe about 30 years ago. And then I just wanted to learn more. And finally, I did make an astral link about 25 years ago in a more obvious way with the first guiding spirit. So we had the link up and running, and at that point they really took over the training here, and they also helped me teach other people. So when I'm teaching wonderful beings such as you two, I'm also getting to sit in on amazing tutorials from other beings at a higher level who really know what they're up to. So I'm like the janitor guy who's been sitting in on the lectures at a great lecture theatre, and I've just been listening to the stuff and managing to write down a bit of it and put it in writing. So I feel like I've just been sharing on some wonderful tutorials. So that and a bit of writing skill gets it all written down succinctly.
Okay, but so what I'm hearing is where I am 90% human, 10%, I allow myself to be 10% other. You are 90% other, and you allow yourself to be 10% human. He doesn't. You don't even register that what you do is unique and different.
Well, I do, but if my human ego got carried away by that idea, it would block the connection.
That's right.
And what I mean by this is when someone's very linked up, you can see over the top of their head, it looks like a column of white light flowing down through them. So, for example, on this show, when we're talking about you two lovely ladies, you two both have a nice column of white light which merges a bit further up as it goes, a bit like a chicken or turkey wishbone. And it flows down through both of you. So it's rather like one being has grabbed hold of two lovely ladies' bodies, and it's getting you to do a coordinated job. So it's like actually working through the two of you at the same time. So there's that lovely energy. But if we get too caught up in our egos and who we think we are, it's rather like some kind of dark block slips over the top, and that stops the flow getting through. It kind of jams it up. It's like you put a hatch or a lid over your head. So if we get caught up in our egos, that's what enables us to act in ridiculous ways. That's all part of the fun, to be fair. We don't want to say you have to stop it, because we did come here to experience that.
That's exactly right.
But at the same time, it'll cut out a lot of that flow. And at that point, you'd say, oh, I'm amazing. But in saying I'm amazing, I then block myself.
Right. Well, because you're, as you say, you're behind your own eyes,
Yeah.
feeling yourself.
Well, can I go back to that point? You did say we came here to experience this hologram. We came here to experience the physical, tangible, human emotions and physical relationships. But this is the time of our evolution where we're also being able to incorporate this higher self and blend the two more. And we don't have to live here in this darkness anymore. We can open up to these energies.
Yes.
And like you said, almost go on autopilot. So I think that might trip a lot of people up, like you're letting somebody, like you're now a puppet and somebody else is running the show. But
Free will.
so how do you differentiate between now I'm not going to have free will versus yes, I want to be guided and helped along and see the bigger picture and see how I can bring that energy in and be that light? How do you see that? Did that make sense?
Well, let's start up
Perfect. It's beautiful.
with the puppet. The simple point to mention about the puppet that I heard a little sort of reminder chucked in from your backroom production there, which was very helpful, was talking about the subject of free will. And that is, this puppet doesn't really have any free will, but it's mostly convinced that it does.
Okay.
So it's walking around every day thinking it's operating on free will. And the simple way to understand how it makes that mistake is that little ideas come into its head. Let me see if I can grab something nearby on my desk that would act as a sort of prop to demonstrate the idea. So here we have this small ball of cheese representing the possibility of an idea. And this little ball of cheese is buzzing around. It's looking for a home. It wants to live. And then one day it sees a human. It says, you know what? I can just get inside its head. Ha-ha. Now, when that little ball of cheese, it's like an idea. It was like a moment of something that wanted to happen. When it's got inside the human says, I've had an idea. I have come up with the new idea. It's all me. I'm the clever human. I'm the one who got this clever idea. I don't know where it came from, but it's mine. And I will now identify myself as that idea. And so that even though something's like popped into the human's head, the human hasn't asked where it's come from. It just reacts to it and does its own thing. So the human is in fact very open to anything that arrives and doesn't really question it. So it's going around without much free will. So when you're saying, what's the human up to? What can come in? Well, there's different stuff coming in all the time, and it's survived this far without falling over and something unfortunate happening to it. Unless, of course, one of those little ideas was throw yourself off a cliff or shoot yourself, which, to be fair, in America, the biggest danger of guns are people actually shooting themselves statistically. You're more likely to shoot yourself with your own gun than you would be to actually ever shoot someone else.
Yeah,
So that's the way it works out.
Statistic.
So this is going on, and the human doesn't have a lot of free will. It's running a program of all these different things coming into its head. And what we're saying is, can the higher part of you come into that body and take over control of its creation? Because otherwise its creation is running around like a game player in a computer game, but the game player is running on automatic. It's like the computer's running the player and it's just doing its own thing. So what you're talking about is getting inviting the real you to come in and start to take more control. And then from that perspective, no one should be afraid. We should be welcoming of the real you having more of an influence. So I hope that's
Yes,
answering
thank you for that
sort of
shift
many
in
points.
perspective. Because it seems like, just being at the whim of whatever programming you pick up from your surroundings or whatever you ingest, and that's sort of, we claim that as free will. But there's a whole nother realm of information that we could download. That's kind of your free will, to download that.
And what you do with it.
And what you do with it. And that must be a much nicer experience to live from that place. Tell me about living from that place versus this place. What's the difference?
The difference is you start to realize in a freaky way that everyone around you is an aspect of yourself. So even though other people seem to be doing different things and doing their own behavior, they're really a part of you, and they're part of the experience you wanted to have on this world.
Yeah.
And also that comes into it is the question of how could you actually make this experience better? Because in an annoying way, it turns out that all the crappy stuff you thought you wanted to get rid of, you thought, if I had free will, I could get rid of all the nonsense and have this very relaxed life, and I'll be happy then. And it then turns out a lot of that crappy and annoying stuff was actually there to help you experience free will. It was help there to remind you to do it and not leave you asleep on a beach somewhere, perhaps with a nice glass of a cocktail drink beside you or something like that. It's there to wake you up and get you taking action. So the first thing you realize actually is all the nonsense is useful. At that point, the question of how could you improve it, and that's going to be down to what adventures could you choose next that'll keep you stimulated, as opposed to how can you just have a blissfully quiet life, because that could probably be a bit boring. So,
I love
any
your
suggestions
perspectives.
for a wild life?
They're so easy.
I love your perspective shifts like that. It really helps you take it in differently, choose differently.
Well, and I'm starting to see this differently. It is. So if we go back to the way this is structured, and if I hear you, or please let me know. So if we think about it as a game, and you've got the people that run basically the earth, just sort of set up the projector, and then you've got the people on the other side that are sort of more in charge of us. Not in charge of, that's not the right word, but they're more in tune with us. So you've got the people creating the distractions, like the viruses and all this stuff. And then the other people are saying, okay, Carrie, are you really getting involved in this? Are you sure you really want to create all this fear around a virus that may come in and wipe out your family? That's a distraction. I mean, is that sort of the way it's set up? Yeah.
Very much the way it's set up. And let's come back to the virus one, because when this went out, we were just at the beginning of the coronavirus, which you can't really escape from. So by the time some people get to watch this show, maybe what passes for a repeat on modern streaming. But anyway, they watch it sometime later, and they will no doubt survive the coronavirus, otherwise they couldn't be watching it. What they'll have noticed happened was this is something you couldn't really escape from. You could all self-isolate at home, but ultimately be exposed to it. And the only way to survive that coronavirus or any other cold and flu was to get your immune system up to speed. Your immune system had to build the necessary antibodies, and after that you're immune to it, and next time a little virus of that sort came along, the immune system would just brush it off. So the higher awareness aspect of it is, if you thought you might be exposed to some kind of virus or something coming along, if you did those three things we talked about, it's going to help your immune system kick into life and really help you. So number one is make sure you're breathing properly, because that puts you in a good energy. It gets you flowing nicely. When you're being energetically aware, number two, you're going to check whether you're feeling happy or sad. If you're feeling sad or upset, you're more likely to go and get some kind of virus, which will say, do you want to feel sad today? I can help you be really miserable. Here's a bit of coronavirus with a nice fever. There you go. But if you're deciding to be happy, your immune system will see that you want to be happy, and it'll say, oh, be healthy today, immune to viruses. That's the way we're going to do it. So by being energetically aware, you can check how happy you are. And thirdly, there are a team of guiding spirits and helpful beings around you. The chances are they'd like to keep you alive on Earth, and they'd like to help you out so they can help align your energy system and keep you stable, because your default state is being one of happy and healthy. So they bring you back to your default.
Oh,
And
love
by
it.
that means, those 3 steps, they're just helping you breathe and do all the healthy things again. And the coronavirus and threats of things like that help remind you to come back into a good state.
I used to always get, I mean, if I found out that your child had a virus that made them puke, of course I'm going to get it, and I always did. Somebody in my family would get it. And now I just say, okay, guys, let's fill me with light. We never get it. I mean, we just never get it. I mean, not to say my kids don't get sick. Of course they do. But I used to get it just by thinking about it. But, okay, so I alluded to...
It's a good, true story, by the way, if I can check it. True story of my mom not understanding the system working at full swing. When we were little kids, there wasn't the MMR vaccine. That's like chicken pox and mumps,
measles, and
that.
rubella.
Now children get given that. Yeah, but they didn't have that, and she was a homeopathic doctor, so she reckoned if we contracted it, she could treat us homeopathically and our symptoms would be minimal, which was ultimately the case. And one day during the school holidays, she heard that one of her friend's children had one of these 3. It could have been mumps or chickenpox. So she sent her 3 sons round to play with that kid to be contaminated,
Yeah.
so they could contract the virus during the school holidays when that seemed like a good time. But she hadn't factored in that we're really enjoying ourselves during the school holidays, and therefore manifested a temporary immunity to the condition until school term time kicked in.
So you
missed 2
enjoyed your
weeks of
holidays
school.
and then got sick. Oh, the
Oh, that's
power of
funny.
the mind
Yeah.
is incredible. The
It
power
really
of
is.
this energy is just incredible.
Oh, that's funny. Which, by the way, I've had the mumps. I've had the
Mumps
measles.
and measles. I've had all
them,
that
the
too.
chicken pox. I mean, I've had them all.
Yeah. I was saying that energy of fear is more contagious than the virus itself. That the fear that gets spread can be like a wildfire, which does lower your immunity,
Yes.
which makes you more susceptible. So we want to be contagious with this energy of deep breath, check your energy, check your vibration, bring in your guides, and make that just as contagious,
Yeah.
so that we can, like you said, continue to be in our high vibration state.
I have a thought for you then. This is a question we'd love to discuss. You'll have noticed that even though you do amazing work, you'll find the best conversations you're often having are with the guests on your show. And when you sometimes try to talk to another human character who doesn't seem to be so into this, you have to be very careful. Otherwise, they think you'll have some kind of mental impairment, or you're indulging in some sort of escapism, something like
Yeah.
that. And that's one of the reasons why you like your shows, because you can meet up with some fun people and have really great conversations. But you're not able to have it with everyone around us, because what's going on is many of the spirit beings on Earth, they're programmed with the idea that they want to be stuck on Earth. They don't want to only to have arrived, just take off. I'll say it another way. They spend so much trouble getting to Earth. It's such a sort of low dimension place compared to some other worlds. It's like trying to swim to the bottom of a deep ocean. It's such a job to get down to the bottom. They don't want to immediately set off again, so they really want to be down at the bottom. And when they're down at the bottom, one of the things they want to do is have all this fear emotion and all these upset feelings. So how much do you find the people around you really like to swim in that heavy upset feelings? What's your experience of it?
Yeah, a lot of people. The people that come to me are ready to not feel it anymore. They're ready to start shifting it. It's been uncomfortable long enough, and they're realizing that they keep choosing that same pattern over and over again, and they're sort of saying, how can I change this? So that's when we start looking at, you know, how to transcend that, how to incorporate it, and that it's there for you. Like you said, you invited it in to help remind you to change internally, not the external.
Yes.
But yeah, there are some people, they're not looking, they're not interested.
Well,
but that's okay. That's their journey, and they're holding that
Right.
steady, and bless them for choosing that.
Bless your heart.
And when they're ready to wake up, they can do that too.
And they can find you. For me, I find that I used to go down with them. I understand. I understand what you're feeling, and this is what happened to me. And I learned to just hold it up here. Come up here. It's much better up here. And so, and people, that's what I find is I try not to go there. Every now and then I'll slip, and especially recently because we've had a lot of change in our life. But it's that has been the biggest shift for me, is learning to hold that vibration and to bring people, show them that this is a better place, at least for me. But
You use the word slip. Why do you use that way of interpreting this?
because I feel that I try to maintain, like, I know what makes me feel better, but sometimes it's like I just don't have the energy to
choose it.
yeah, or the discipline to try to stay up here. It's like, I mean, like, for example, recently we had to move out of our house, and not had to, it's been a wonderful thing, but a lot of change. And I found myself, instead of making myself feel better by going for a walk and drinking a green juice and laughing, instead it's like, I think I might drink a glass of wine, and I want that chocolate over there, and I'm staying up too late, so I wasn't getting, and I just sort of spiraled down. And for me, that's a slip, because I pay the price at the end, so that instant gratification doesn't quite get me where I think it will get me.
Well, we all have that in common. And for the benefit of anyone who thinks this David character goes around all day at some higher level, sort of la-di-da, no, he doesn't. He can get just as low as anyone else and try and go a bit lower on a good day as well to see how low you go. And that's the way they are. So firstly, realize anyone experiencing this earth world is likely to go very low. And think of it as perhaps it's not a slip. Perhaps we did want to go low, because every time we come back up, we do get fresh perspectives on things. Mm-hmm. So you're actually running a fresh perspective mechanism. So going really low can have its uses. And if you take away the thought that you've slipped up, that instead perhaps you wanted to go really low, that helps you come back up quicker. So instead of going low for days or weeks, you can reduce it to a shorter period of time and then get more benefit out of that little roller coaster.
Oh, it's empowering. Mm-hmm.
You know, a lesson that you taught me in one of our private sessions that I'll never forget, you were guiding me through incorporating this energy, and there was something very present, an energy that was difficult, and you're like, just fall into that energy, just completely embody it and fall it. And you're like, I don't want to, it hurts. And you're like, just feel it, just fall into it. And when I did, you're like, what's happening? And you were mentally having me tell you what was going on. And then all of a sudden, the more I fell into it, the more lighter it got. And you're like, it's a cycle. Like, you can't go through one without coming back into the other. And so I have used that so often, is to just feel it without fear, and it transforms to the opposite just as quickly. It was really cool.
That's it. Yes. There you go. And once you've learned how to do it, it's really fun to have those moments, and then we're not afraid of the down.
Yeah.
You don't resist it.
Because we know it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
We don't have to resist. We can go with it and come through the other side. And that'll also make you a much more fun person to be with, because you'll be able to play with these emotions.
And not get stuck in them. Well, okay, I have a question for you. And I alluded to this last week. So one night I had, and I'm sorry guys, I think I've told you all this before, but I don't know if I've told you this. So I had this lucid experience. I don't even know if it was a dream. It was a dream. But I'm sitting in the dark, and I start reaching over, and I find a table next to me, and I pull it. I pull the light. There's a lamp, and I pull the light, the string. All of a sudden, it's like, holy cow, where am I? It's this vast cavern, just this huge space. And I see these beings, human beings, over off to the side. And it's funny because it fleshes out. The more I'm in it, the more I can see. And I see these beings, and they're looking. They're like, oh, look, yep, there she is. She's awake. They were just every now and then check on me. And I walk over to them, and they're showing me, it's like as far as the eye can go, there are these kiosks. And a being at a kiosk, and there's a holographic, and it's like they're sitting at this console, and there's a holographic world playing out, like a scene playing out, and they're all over the place. And then they tell me to look up, and I look up, and there are these cables, like these fiber optics, and there are just these energies going back and forth, and it's just this complete web. And they said, do you know what this is? And I said, are these our lives? Like our guides are sitting and they're watching this hologram, and that when we heal, like if I heal now and it's 2020, it affects the past and it affects the future. And so, that's what these optic things are up above us. So when I was telling you that some of the information that I've gotten this too, not in such detail that you are, but do you know what that is? My experience?
Well, let's do a few things. I'm going to wrap this into keeping you on message about pushing part 3 of the Great Simulator book forward at the same time.
Okay. I love that.
So, to give you the background, when I mentioned part 3, what we're trying to do is you, in your mind, have gone back to that room. Oh, God, it must be coming on to about 100 times now to have a second look around it. Mm-hmm. You've gone back so many times. You've been back and forth. You've been back to the memory of it. Around the memory of it. Looking at more detail from it, but you're still not really breaking out of that space a lot of the time. And in part 3 of the book we put forward, it's trying to give you more of an understanding about how to go back to these places and sense them a little bit more. So that now we've got you here on the line, let's get you breathing better. And whilst we're talking about it, let's start picking up a greater sense of all these things you were talking about in your description. So come on, breathing a little more relaxed, playful way. Because now that we said, let's go back there, your first reaction is slightly nervously, which will hold us all up for about 30 seconds until we get the more playful side coming through.
Are you breathing?
I'm breathing. Yes, I keep catching myself.
I'm just feeling again.
Okay.
And saying relax and breathe, and this is fun.
I'm feeling again. I'm smiling more as you breathe. Smiling more as we breathe. And what you were hitting there in a dream was this sort of, it's this like a sort of low astral world area where people were showing kind of explanation of what was going on. So take, for example, when you're sensing those cables, you're looking at them, but just feel right now, if you just took any one of them and felt the energy of it coming into your body, and it'll affect Tiffany at the same time, what's it like when you just feel the energy of any one of those cables, those like fiber optics? What does it feel like as we plug into it?
I'm instantly back in, it looks like I'm back in a time frame. Like I'm instantly transported back to a time frame.
Yeah, it's instantly. Or so we say it's taking you out of time into the energy of moments. It's giving you a sort of timelessness where you're understanding from there how time is created. And these moments from the past and the future, as you so well described, they can interact in both directions. The past can suddenly affect the future in a strange way. Mm-hmm. So you're connecting up to those energy forms. And that's a nice one. Now, also, you talked about the characters behind the sort of desk. Sometimes called as like sort of control room people. And once again, feel how first when we talk about them, your breathing will tense a little bit because you have to relax into them, as so beautifully described by Tiffany earlier about relaxing into the energy of these characters, and just saying a little bit of a hello to them. What's it like right now when you send out a little bit of a hello energy to your friends?
They turned and waved.
Yeah, they say, hello, isn't this fun?
Yes. And this is what we're aiming for you lovely girls to do, is when these moments happen, you've got brilliant memories, but it's like a phone number. It's like someone in your contacts pages of your cell phone. Let's go back there and connect up some more and let the energies come through you. So they come in the body and then they get the experience of, for them, it's a conversation with themselves, but via a lovely female.
We're starting to break up a little bit here, so let's hope this connection, you've frozen.
Just, yeah.
There you are.
Let's try that
I
again.
think
Yeah.
we still have audio.
Yep.
Yes, we still have audio.
So we still got audio. So once again, just feel the energy. When your friends are saying hello to you, they get a chance to be in your lovely bodies. And what's it like for them to come through right now and be playing in a modern day little TV studio? What's it like for them to come into the earthly world? Can we get a bit of feedback off them? What observations would they drop into your minds right now?
I feel very expanded in this moment. I don't know what that feels like. I mean, do you feel anything?
Uh-huh. I feel translucent, almost like I'm a screen.
Like this really is just a biological entity, and the consciousness isn't this body.
Oh, that's good.
That's a wild feeling. It's very calm.
It is.
And you see, this is what it's when we're letting the higher presences come through the physical forms, or they like think themselves as physical, even though they're illusory. They're quite holographic in their own way, and visiting the earthly world. And this what we're working on. We're just helping remind people how this is done. Instead of just having a memory of something, we can redial that number. We can actually use the memory as a reminder to climb back in and say hello to our lovely friends and help us. So where does this take us next?
Oh, I'm just laughing.
This-
My team told me a few weeks ago, they said, you don't land. You fly over the island, but you don't land. And because I was saying, people have these incredible experiences and I just can't seem to sustain it. They said, because you keep going, you keep hopping, you don't ever stop and flesh it out, basically. There's so much there for you to learn, but you're on to the next thing, like a rabbit. And so I'm laughing because that's exactly what you've just said. So we can go in different times too. I mean, it is like different nexus points.
Yes.
It feels unlimited.
So if you want
And
to
I
go
wonder
back
if
and visit
anybody,
your mom,
I wonder if anybody at home is connecting with this too, if you've been able to feel this. Because I know for a long time I lived in fear of anything paranormal, and I had a lid on it. And it's taken quite a lot of releasing to let that lid be open, and now that it feels so easy or natural or fun
in the moment.
Mm-hmm. If you can actually let the lid be off and not fear this as something that, like we were saying, the puppet or
I'm gonna get overtaken
all
by
that
an evil
old stuff.
being.
No, I don't even. I know it's there, but I don't feel it at all. So this is cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So can Tiffany go back and visit her mother if she wanted to, at a specific time and watch a scene play?
Here. Oh yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, like, could you go back to April 31st or 30th, 1975?
Not in this exact second here, but I feel
Hello?
like if I go ahead.
So just one thing I wanted to mention, because you brought up a very good point a moment ago, and that was some people wanted to join us, but they might be afraid. And it was something that happened in my parents' house, in the kitchen of it, around midnight. Like when I was 25 years old, so half a lifetime ago, roughly. I had one of my brothers, one of his friends was there. The friend's mom had died many years ago, and he just started talking about, and kept on talking about his deceased mom, until suddenly we all said we could felt there was a bit of a presence in the room. And at that point, it was like there was a sort of ghost of the mom in the room, and it was getting near people. But the son was like really freaked out. He was getting scared and almost wanted to back off. And my brother was letting it into him for a moment, letting it merge with him for a moment, and then he just was going, what was that? But with me, with the sort of program mind I had, I was, well, bring it on, let's see what happened. And I was letting the sort of ghostly presence of the mom come into my body. And for one of the sort of first times in my life that I can remember, I was feeling the joy and unconditional love of, in fact, what we're really like in the heavens. And it was a beautiful energy that would make you want to cry with happiness. And it's not the sort of thing you normally want to do in front of your brother and his friend like that, cry with happiness. But you could feel the energy come through and moistening there. If I was a girl, I'd probably cried more. But there was energy coming through, so we can get past the fear and let that happen.
That's beautiful.
So just that kind of story there, when you're letting our friends in the heavens come through, you can go at your own pace, but as you relax, you'll find as they get nearer, it's a beautiful experience, and one that you can enjoy and will really remember when you get a nice connect. So I apologize, you were talking about something to do with dates a few minutes ago, and at the same time I had on the other line this sense of, tell them about the good story for a second. So I slightly interrupted your the train of the interview. Do get back to what it was you were saying.
No, but I love that the child was fearing this ghost of his mother, and she was coming through with this unconditional love for him. There's nothing to fear. And my parents in spirit have told me there's nothing that can or would hurt you from this side. It's just the fear of it is what hurts, but there's nothing.
Yes.
And I know other people have had experiences, and we don't have to go down this rabbit trail now, with what they call negative entities, or you know, that there are other energies that can get in there and confuse things and shake things up a bit, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about connecting with these heavenly friends is what we're speaking of here.
Yes. Yeah. That's what we feel. And feel how when we're talking about that, how light it makes us feel energetically.
Yeah, it's like I trust this feeling. Like this feels good. This feels okay to just let it in. It doesn't feel like I have to protect myself from it or shield myself.
Yeah.
That's a question.
Quite often we've been protecting us. Yeah, go on. We're often protecting ourselves because when we're in a sensitive state, supposing we can low-level stuff that you can easily absorb, it really knocks you around. It feels like a disturbed influence. You then say you need to get out.
David, we're getting quite a. I'm going to pause you, David, because we're getting a lot of breakup and staggers. So I'm going to ask you just to repeat that part.
Or should we call him right back? Because we can edit this out.
Because you've frozen and you're getting very, very choppy. So let's give it a second. I wonder if it'll come back.
I think it's the work we're doing.
Can you speak a little bit? Because you're not moving.
We're using 2 internet connections, so we've got one for the audio and one for the video.
Well, the video's frozen, so and the audio is very choppy.
You know what? We're going to call you right back on the audio.
We'll
If you
reconnect.
give me about 1 minute,
Okay.
1 minute, so I can take a short break.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Which will give you time to reset. All right.
Okay.